Mikel Glass at the Fine Arts Center. What is this? We're here. Things are being put up on the walls and installed, I guess, is the word that the art community uses to describe such activity.
We are installing a show, and it does include things. And that term "things" is pretty interesting in context of this show, because not only is Mikel a fantastic painter, fantastic realist painter, but his most recent body of work is a collection of things. In this case, cardboard boxes and paper objects of various sorts.
What's the theme that kind of holds all of this together? I mean, you walk in one room here, you got cardboard boxes and various cardboard manifestations of reality, and you walk into another room, there's a giant kind of crazy explosion of madness. Then another room, paintings. What's the unifying theme?
I think there are a couple of unifying themes here, and a lot of threads that you can pull throughout this show. One is that Mikel is a fantastic painter, one of these great illusionary painters that is really successful in creating the illusion of reality in the Renaissance tradition in painting. And what he's done is, one of the threads you can pull here is that what he's done is that he's translated this realist painting ability to the creation of what you might call realist sculpture in these cardboard boxes. Another thing about this show is that because of the very mundane nature of especially the sculpture you see in the show, nothing is as it appears. The one thing that Mikel is really playing successfully with here is our very human tendency, even when we know something isn't what it appears to be, even though we know something isn't true, if it's based in our historical understanding of what a certain thing is, it's hard to get past. You look at these cardboard boxes, you'll know that perhaps they're not made of cardboard, perhaps they're not manufactured in a factory and simply appropriated by the artist and put on a pedestal, perhaps not unlike Marcel Duchamp's fountain, the urinal he turned on its back and put on a pedestal in 1917. Even though you know that, there's still this very, very realistic object sitting in front of you that you continually question, is this the real thing? Some part of this must be the real thing. Some part of this must have been silk screened in a warehouse somewhere, but it's all handmade. And in the show, part of the sort of balancing act for us as a museum is how far do you go to really let people in on that narrative. One thing we've done here is that some of these boxes, like this one, this thing that appears to be a flattened cardboard box, we've hung it out from the wall so you can look behind it and see that this is in fact not a cardboard box, it's a painting on wood. And similar with the rest of them, we'll have a video going in the gallery here that shows how Mikel makes these cardboard boxes, how he makes the sort of corrugated striation. He's come up with all these creative tools to do it. The more you dig into the show, the more you spend time with the boxes, you see the histories that accompany each of these boxes and paper products. And you spend time with the paintings that Mikel has done that are in the next gallery. Mikel is also working on an installation component for the show as well. The more time you spend with these various aspects of Mikel's artistic output, you see that there's an intensive personal investment in these objects, and sometimes very deeply personal histories, sometimes commentary on social history and a lot of the things that we've come to know as American social history, especially in the last maybe 25 years. And so it's this great synthesis of craftsmanship throughout the show, both in the paintings and in the sculptures, with a sort of intensive look at sort of deeply and intimately personal issues and social issues. Another thing that Mikel is very interested in is where, for him, all of these ideas begin to take form. And of course, for Mikel, as for many artists, the space that he associates with that is his studio. So one of the components of this show is an area of installation that is simultaneously reflective of his studio, of the appearance of his studio, and very clearly serves as this wellspring of ideas out into the galleries, and so you'll see a lot of the objects in his paintings in the installation itself. And a lot of the themes in the paintings actually taking physical form via objects right before your eyes in the installation itself.
Right now we're kind of in the midst of this recreation of your studio world.
Right, it's a very condensed, sort of boiled down, abridged version of what an art studio sort of looks like. To me, it sort of represents the idea of the wellspring of ideas. And specifically, what I want to include is the attributes of the paintings in real life, in real time, in the setup, so that people can look and say, oh, look at that, I saw that in the painting over there, and sort of draw a connection between the paintings, the artist's studio as represented here, and ultimately the sculptures in the other room.
Yeah, it is kind of surreal. I mean, you see the winged Bart Simpson here in three-dimensional reality, and then in one of the paintings on the wall in the two of the paintings in the next room.
Yeah, you'll see one in this room, and he's almost mimicking the position of the painting of his portrait in the painting in this room, and then again in the other room you'll see him. These are paintings in 2 dimensions of objects that exist in 3 dimensions in the real world. The installation will have those objects that I look at to create the 2-dimensional paintings. And then as far as the leap to the sculptures of cardboard and paper products in the other room, they are straightforward realist paintings but on a 3-dimensional ground. And so I basically see them and treat them as regular paintings, just like I'm doing in here, but they happen to be, rather than flat, in 3 dimensions.
What kinds of reactions do you get with your work? I mean, when people see this stuff for the first time, I mean, is it surprising to you the way people react, or is it interesting, or the perspectives that people have on it?
One reaction that's typical of a lot of the work here is with the doll paintings. For some reason, I don't know if it's Hollywood's treatment of Chucky or other dolls. I don't know if it's the John Benet Ramsey thing. I don't know if it's people's repressed childhood memories. But for some reason, when people see paintings of dolls, or they see dolls in a scenario that is not, I guess, typical, that of being in a little girl's hand, at an imaginary tea party, they think it's creepy. And I'd say that's almost a universal reaction that I have. Some people have a tolerance for it, and they excuse it right away. Other people think that there's something wrong with me.
Are you trying to desensitize people with your inclusion of dolls and dollography in your work?
No, I wouldn't say so at all. What I'm trying to do is tell a story, and when I tell that story, the reaction always changes. And very, briefly, the idea is that the dolls to me represent a feeling, like a spirit of childhood that I want to try to convey. The first doll I ever painted was one that I happened upon in New York City, where I lived. I was leaving for my studio very early one morning, and sort of in the dim morning light, I saw a bag that looked a little out of place on the street. And although in Colorado Springs here, anything would look out of place. It's the cleanest place I've ever seen. In New York, you trudge through garbage, but this piece of garbage looked a little different. And as I approached it, I saw the distinct form of a human baby, and I got really scared. And as I got closer and touched it, I soon realized that it was a doll. But the feeling that sprang from that was so strong that I just instinctively grabbed it, brought her to my studio, where she sat for a long time. I didn't know what was going to happen with her, but I knew that there was something about it that I wanted to make art of. I wanted to make a statement about. I have a psychologist in my family who introduced me to the concept of, or the term, object permanence, which is basically, the child having the object that they love and adore and cherish, and they pour all of their emotions to, the happy ones, the sad ones, and that's what the dolls represent to me. And I feel like my job is